If you're watching this video right now, chances are you're carrying a quiet, persistent pain, the pain of loving someone who never truly loved you back, or perhaps never intended to. Maybe they've already moved on, smiling in a new relationship, while you're still stuck in the place where they left you, asking yourself, why wasn't I enough? But let me tell you this, you're not crazy, you're not weak, and you're definitely not alone. You're entangled in something many have experienced, what psychology calls a trauma bond. This video isn't here to judge you or to make you feel worse. It's here to help you see that someone understands you, someone who has stood right where you're standing now. I'm going to walk you through the deeper reasons why it feels impossible to let go of someone who repeatedly hurt you, why your brain craves the highs hidden between the lows, and how you can start reclaiming yourself one step at a time. We'll also talk about the subtle signs of narcissistic traits, why they don't love you, only what you gave them, and most importantly, how to heal without waiting for closure that may never come. If something in these words makes you feel seen, heard, or understood, then this space is for you. Please hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and stay with me through the end of this video. I won't promise you'll forget them overnight, but I will promise to offer a truth that awakens you, and from there, you can begin the journey of choosing yourself again with the courage and peace you so deeply deserve. Before you start blaming yourself for not being able to let go of them, let me make one thing clear. This isn't just a bad breakup. This is a psychological war, one where you are the only one left wounded. There are no bruises on your skin, no medical reports to prove the damage, yet your mind is scattered with shattered pieces. And the most painful part, no one around you truly understands what you're going through. They might say things like, be strong or just move on. But how do you let go when your brain has been programmed to hold on tightly to the very person who hurt you the most? You're not alone in feeling this way. In fact, research shows that relationships with individuals who exhibit narcissistic traits can lead to anxiety, depression, and even PTSD. This is no longer just about love. It's a form of deep psychological trauma. You fell for someone who didn't love you back, yet was clever enough to make you believe they did. They gave you sweet moments just long enough for you to trust them, only to pull their affection away without warning. And every time you tried to walk away, they'd pull you back in with charm, with apologies, with memories of the good times. So you stayed not because you were weak, but because your brain had been chemically trained to cling to them like they were your lifeline. Here's what you need to understand. Narcissists don't build love, they build transactions. They don't love you, they consume you. Your attention, your energy, your forgiveness, all of it is fuel for their endless ego. And because of that, letting them go doesn't feel like the end of a relationship, it feels like detoxing from a drug that's been running through your bloodstream. They didn't just steal your emotions, they hijacked your clarity, your perception of self-worth. And every time you forgave them, you weren't being noble, you were just re-entering a cycle with someone who consistently chose to hurt you over protecting you. You might be asking yourself, but we had real moments, the words, the looks, the deep connection, was it all fake? I understand. That question is part of what's keeping you stuck. But the painful truth is this, not everything was fake, but everything real was bait. Even a wolf can play like a puppy, but that doesn't make it your friend. One moment of vulnerability doesn't erase a pattern of destruction. They turned your softness into a weapon. When you think about leaving, your brain doesn't crave peace, it craves the emotional highs they gave you in the middle of chaos. The sudden rush of dopamine released from a compliment after a fit of rage, from an "I miss you" text after days of cold silence, from their smile following a long string of blame and manipulation, all of it created a cycle of intermittent reinforcement, a psychological conditioning similar to gambling addiction. You're not addicted to them. You're addicted to the feeling of being accepted by them, a feeling that came rarely, unpredictably, and always at their whim. That randomness made your brain unable to predict when the reward would come, and that's exactly what kept you hooked. Just like a gambler doesn't walk away from the slot machine after hours of losses, clinging to the hope that maybe next time I'll win, you stayed, thinking maybe next time they would really change. But you know what? The change you're waiting for may never come, because it may never have existed in them at all. They don't need to change because you've already been changing yourself to fit them. And then you start blaming yourself. Am I too sensitive? Am I expecting too much? Did I do something wrong? But all those questions stem from one place. You were trained to believe the problem was you, when in fact they programmed you to think that way. This is no longer about love, this is about control through emotional manipulation, subtle, persistent, and dangerously effective. Why are you so loyal to pain? Why do you defend someone in your mind who never defended you when you needed them most, who couldn't even offer you a kind explanation? You're holding on to the image of someone who, given the chance, would let you go without a second thought. But you're still there, still hoping that one day they'll wake up and realize you were the one worth choosing. The brutal truth is this: the person you once loved may have never actually existed. They didn't change over time, they simply removed the mask you once loved. Those tender gestures, emotionally charged words, sweet early acts, they might have only been tools. Part of a well-crafted bait strategy designed to lure you into investing real emotion into a fake relationship. And once you loved, once you trusted, once you became dependent, they no longer needed to pretend. And the cruelest part, you still can't hate them. Even though they hurt you, abandoned you, made you cry, you still cling to the beautiful moments. You still remember the nights they held you, the way they used to call you everything. You search for reasons behind their behavior. Maybe they were hurt in the past. Maybe they just don't know how to love. If I'm patient enough, maybe they'll change. But my dear, someone who's drowning cannot save another. And you weren't born to be the life raft for someone who refuses to swim on their own. They once told you that you were the light in their darkness, didn't they? But be honest with yourself now. How many times did they extinguish that very light? They promised to protect you, but who wiped your tears at night? They told you you were the only one, then why did you feel like a temporary choice the moment they got bored? Maybe you believed that if you loved them deeply enough, they would learn how to love back. But love isn't a moral exam, and you don't need to endure suffering to prove your worth. Real love doesn't make you question your sanity. It doesn't require you to erase your identity. It doesn't ask you to start over with the same person every week. You don't need that kind of love. What you need is peace. You need to be yourself without being punished for being too sensitive, too honest, or too genuine. And here's the most important thing you must remember. Love is not something you have to earn. It is something that is given freely by those who know how to love without asking you to trade in your soul. So if today you still remember them, still recall the way they looked at you, still wait for a message from them, don't judge yourself. You are in the process of pulling an emotional IV needle out of your body. It's going to hurt. There will be moments when you feel weak, moments when you want to call them just to hear one soft word. But don't forget, that same voice once stole your sleep. That same sweetness is what kept you stuck in the very months you should have walked away. Their true self is the one who vanished without a word, the one who made you question your own emotions, then turned around and blamed you for every fracture in the relationship, the one who could walk away without hesitation, leaving your tears as nothing more than background noise in their life. And the most painful part, you still remember. You still replay the moments when they held your hand in silence, looked at you with soft eyes, made you believe you were both building a future together. But all of it, the sweet messages, the promises to change, the seemingly perfect dates, wasn't love. It was bait. Here's what you need to understand. They didn't love you. They crafted an experience tailored perfectly to your dream of love, then used the dream to control you. According to Dr. Ramani Devasula, a renowned psychologist specializing in personality disorders, particularly narcissism, individuals with narcissistic traits often create a highly curated charm in the beginning but cannot maintain long-term emotional connection. They read you like a book, knowing what you wanted to hear, what wounds needed soothing, and what longings they could exploit to build a version of themselves you'd find impossible to leave. And when you began to question them, when you asked for clarity, or when you expressed a valid emotional need, they disappeared. Abruptly, coldly, without explanation, like a master illusionist, they never reveal how the trick works. They simply exit the stage when the audience starts asking too many questions. That's when you were ghosted. And then, one day, they show up again, as if nothing ever happened. They call you by that old nickname, ask if you miss them, and plant the seed of hope. Maybe this time will be different. Why do they do this? It's not because they miss you. It's because they want to see if their emotional supply is still available. Psychologists refer to this as emotional supply, the feeding of one's ego by manipulating another's emotions. When they come back, it's not to make amends. It's to test whether you'll still respond. If you do, the game continues. And you, with a heart that once loved them genuinely, will search for any reason to believe what you had was real. It couldn't all have been fake. Surely there were genuine moments. That question, sadly, is less about seeking the truth and more about holding on to hope. Because if you accept that it was all manipulation, you have to confront a harsh reality, that you loved an illusion. The truth is, not everything was an act. just as not every kind gesture stems from love. Even a wolf can fake affection to lure prey, and a few vulnerable moments, even if they cried, even if they showed weakness, do not excuse a long pattern of emotional harm. According to Dr. George Simon, author of In Sheep's Clothing, narcissistic individuals often use these moments of vulnerability as tools of manipulation to make the victim feel responsible for staying, for loving harder, for sacrificing more. One story about childhood neglect makes you feel pity. One admission of past mistakes earns them another chance. They don't truly apologize, they perform remorse just enough to control your reaction. And you condition to forgive fall into the same cycle over and over again. At that point, love is no longer connection, it becomes a trauma loop sustained by psychological tactics. In psychology, this is known as cognitive dissonance, the mental conflict that occurs when you know one truth. They hurt you, but believe another. They loved you. Your brain tries to rationalize both, causing deep confusion. That dissonance is what keeps you stuck. You don't understand why you still think about them every day, even though your logic has already seen the truth. And so, you begin to feel guilty for your feelings, like you're loving wrong, thinking wrong, feeling wrong. But here's the truth, you're not wrong. You were deceived. No one teaches you how to recognize a narcissist. They don't walk around wearing signs that say emotional manipulator. They come into your life as someone trustworthy, charming and magnetic, and then, slowly, piece by piece, through every silent treatment, every angry outburst, every blame-shifting argument, they strip you of yourself. And you don't even realize it. Because the manipulation doesn't come through rage, it comes through the sweet apologies that follow. It makes you believe that things aren't that bad, that everyone has flaws, that they just need time. But over time, the one who truly changes is not them, it's you. You smile less. You apologize more. You speak less. You shrink in your own life just enough to fit into the space they allowed for you. Real love doesn't require you to shrink to survive. It doesn't ask you to abandon yourself in pursuit of someone who knows how to mimic emotion, but never actually lives it. And it's exactly at this point that we arrive at a truth, one that most psychological studies don't explicitly record, but one you'll feel most clearly in your own heart. The reason they continue to haunt your mind isn't because you can't let them go, but because you're still clinging to the feeling of once being validated in their presence. You don't miss them, you miss the version of yourself when you thought you were loved by them. That's the key. A narcissist never gave you real love. They gave you a false mirror, one that reflected you the way they needed you to see yourself, so you'd fall in love with that image and become dependent on it. They made you believe you were enough only when you pleased them, that your worth was defined by their approval, their praise, their decision to choose you. So when they left, you didn't just lose a relationship, you lost your sense of self-worth. You felt empty, invisible, and perhaps even unsure if you were lovable at all. That wasn't a broken love. That was a stolen identity. But here's the truth. Your value was never tied to whether someone chose you. It doesn't rise and fall with someone's presence or absence. It doesn't reside in the messages they didn't answer, the promises they didn't keep, or the dreams you once built together. Your worth existed before them, during them, and it remains whole, unshaken, and even stronger after them. I won't lie to you, the road to healing isn't gentle. No, it feels like hell. You'll cry from the weight of longing. You'll wrestle with thoughts that make you question your sanity. You'll feel like you're going backward. And you'll ask yourself things like, was I too harsh? Was it really my fault? Should I give them one more chance? And those questions will come more often than you expect. But one day you'll wake up and realize the panic attacks have lessened. You've stopped checking for unread messages. And in the mirror, you see yourself again. Not the person holding their breath, waiting for someone else to define their worth, but someone learning to breathe again, on their own terms. You once thought the story ended when they walked away. But no, that was merely the end of the villain's chapter. The rest, the part where you reclaim the pen and rewrite the script of your life, hasn't even begun yet. And when you do write it, it won't be anyone else's draft. It will be your own fiery narrative of awakening, self-respect, and rebirth. First, there's something you need to do, something you may have been putting off for a long time. Take back the pen and begin writing your own life story. It's time to sit down and decide that the next chapter will no longer be authored by anyone else, especially not someone who once manipulated you with half-hearted affection and made you doubt your own reality. You are no longer the side character in a script directed by a narcissist. You are no longer the victim in a dark plot written to keep you in shadows. This is the moment you stop living as the chosen one and start living as someone who chooses themselves. You might think you're not strong enough to rewrite that story, that you've lost too much, been worn down too deeply. But the truth is, Every time you got up after a sleepless night thinking of them. Every time you blocked them, then accidentally unblocked them. Every time you cried in silence but didn't call, you were already beginning to rewrite. No great beginning comes without doubt and pain. But still begin. Even if the only line you can write today is this: I deserve a love that does not destroy me. Because you truly do. You deserve a love that doesn't make you apologize for your feelings. A love that doesn't make you feel too much, too weak, too needy. A love that doesn't force you to compromise your values or your dignity. A love where you can breathe deeply, laugh fully, and sleep peacefully, not because someone reassured you with words, but because their actions make you feel safe. And then, perhaps one day they'll come back with a message. A casual "how are you?" A familiar emoji. A perfectly crafted apology. And your heart may tremble, not because you love them, but because you once believed in the version of them they created for you. But remember this: not every door that once closed needs to be reopened. Not every beautiful memory deserves resurrection. They aren't coming back because they've woken up or truly repented. Don't mistake their return as a sign from God. It's not a miracle, it's a test. A trap dressed in a new box. A challenge sent straight from the darkness you've been fighting so hard to escape. And the enemy wrapped in soft charm is watching to see if you're still naive enough to dance with the flame that once burned you. So when they return, and most narcissists eventually do, block them, without hesitation, without reason, without needing to play the bigger person. Block them like your future depends on it, because it does. Blocking them doesn't mean you hate them, it means you love yourself enough to protect your peace. Because if you don't build boundaries, they'll continue walking in like your heart is a hotel room rented by the hour. No more justifications. No more romanticizing what hurt you. No more convincing yourself that maybe this time will be different. No more painting a cycle of pain with the glitter of false hope. They haven't changed. They've only changed tactics. And you don't heal by drinking the same poison just because it comes in a prettier glass. Healing, let me remind you, is never comfortable. It's not a walk in the park. It's a mountain climb where every step carries the weight of your old wounds. You'll want to stop. You'll want to turn back. You'll cry over a song, a scent, an unread message that says seen. But remember, staying broken isn't any easier. And it's not sustainable. It rots you from the inside slowly but surely. You've already wasted enough time, energy, and opportunities trying to fix something that was sent to break you. Stop rebuilding a house on ground that's already caved in. Stop stitching together your heart with pieces of broken glass you've picked up after every time they shattered you. Now is the time to rebuild, but not to please anyone, not to prove anything. Rebuild to become the person you once were, or better yet, a version of yourself that is wiser, stronger, and finally free. And that journey doesn't begin with them. It begins with you choosing you. No more reasons needed. No more waiting for one last message. Just one decision, bold and final. From now on, I write this story. And this time, no one else gets to steal the pen. And so, once you've taken back the pen to your own life, once you've shut the door that once led you to emotional ruin, the question is no longer, how do I forget them? But rather, how will I live now that they're no longer here? Healing, contrary to what social media or glossy self-help book covers might suggest, doesn't begin with meditation retreats, a trip to find yourself, or proving to them that you're doing just fine. Healing begins quietly with those mornings when you choose to get out of bed, even though you barely slept the night before. With meals you cook for yourself after weeks of barely eating. With the decision to stop checking whether they've read your messages and start checking your own breath instead. And then, bit by bit, you'll begin to see you don't need them in order to live a full life. What you truly need is to reconnect with yourself, the version of you who once laughed without needing approval, who had dreams that had nothing to do with them, who was whole before being pulled into the emotional maze of someone who never knew how to love. This is the moment to look at the broken pieces you've been carrying, not to mourn them, but to learn how to piece them together into a new version of yourself, not perfect but real, not instantly beautiful but resilient, not in need of admiration, only needing to be someone you can look at in the mirror without shame. Forgiveness, if it comes, will come later, and it doesn't have to be for them. Sometimes the person you need to forgive first is yourself. Forgive yourself for not leaving sooner. Forgive yourself for giving too much to someone who didn't value it. Forgive yourself for investing your hope in a dream tied to the wrong person. And from there, you'll start to feel lighter, not because every wound has healed, but because you've stopped pressing into it daily with the question, what if? No one can teach you how to love again, not even me. But I can tell you this, you will love again. But first, Learn how to live again. Don't let the next love be a patch for an old void. Let it be a reward for the journey you've bravely walked, the result of choosing yourself after you've learned to stop accepting half-loves, empty apologies, and the kind of affection that forces you to disappear in order to be loved. Healing is the loneliest journey and the most powerful one, because for the first time you are living for you, not for who stays or who might leave. For the first time, you're not trying to shrink to fit someone else. You're learning to fit into your own skin. And only when you've learned that, are you truly free, not because you've forgotten the one who hurt you, but because you've remembered who you are. In the end, what I hope you carry with you after all these words is not anger and not regret, but awakening. A realization that you deserve to be loved in a way that doesn't ask you to shrink yourself piece by piece. That real love, when it's right, will never make you question your intuition, your sanity, or your self-worth. And most importantly, you don't need to wait for anyone to begin again. Every step you take, even the small, trembling ones, is moving you further away from what broke you and closer to yourself. Someone whole, someone strong, someone beautiful in their unshaken essence, not defined by the gaze of anyone else. And if one day you come back to hear these words again, I hope they no longer bring you pain, only gratitude. Gratitude that you didn't give up halfway, that you chose yourself, that you chose to live. Because this story was never truly about them. It was always about you. And from here on out, the next chapter will be the chapter of light.